And there was several people wearing my jersey. It was really cool. And then I was very proud of the way that Adam Silver, our commissioner, donated proceeds of the jersey sales to Lesbian and also the Matthew Shepard Foundation. So putting money back into the LGBT community. It's remarkable to see the outpour of support. And also from a financial standpoint, like LGBTQI community has a lot of dollars to spend, and with regards to that affects endorsements. It affects. I see a jersey right there, actually. That's so funny. It can have a positive effect, and like I said, when the NBA, the commissioner, turns around and gives that money back to the community, it's remarkable.
Question over here. Hi. In your announcement, you said that I'm a 34-year-old NBA center, I'm black, and I'm gay.
Yes.
Why was it important to talk about that intersection, and what do you think of the way the media covered the black and gay issue in the intersection?
I don't think they covered it. I think they could have done a better job of covering that particular aspect as far as being black and gay. My parents taught me to be proud of what makes me unique. I went to some schools where there weren't a lot of minorities. So when my brother and I walked into the room, sometimes we were the only African-American kids in the classroom, and really developing that sense of pride of being black. But for so long, I didn't have that pride of being gay. And now, just being proud of being black and gay, and learning that it's almost like you're in, I'm in two minority groups, and just being that role model for other, because it's not discussed about, it really isn't discussed about enough in the black community as far as being a member of the LGBT community. There are certain members of my family who come from a school of thought where, okay, you're gay, we love you, we support you, but just don't talk about that. And just having that realization, it's like, well, when it comes, you never taught me to be that way as far as being black, so why would you now tell me to, not be proud and hold my head up high? And so just combating them, combating those members of my family with that argument, and then having a discussion, having a conversation. And I think that's a conversation that we can continue to have as far as the race and the sexual orientation, because a lot of the work, my grandmother comes from upstate Louisiana. She grew up in Jim Crow segregation. And to see her now living in the Bay Area and where we've come as a country, we've come a far way along the lines of race, but we still have a lot of work to do. We can see that with what's going on in Ferguson. That racial issues still exist in this country. And as far as being a member of the LGBT community, where we start out in Stonewall to where we are now in Stonewall in New York, and then now when I go into my first game with the Brooklyn Nets, I check into the game, I get a standing ovation. We've come a long way as society, but again, we still have a lot of work to go. So just as minorities, we can never, we always have to keep fighting and keep pushing forward and keep challenging so that those rights that have been extended continue to be extended, and keep the work going.
Thank you for joining us. I found it interesting that your story and Michael Sam's story played out at the same time as Richard Incognito and Jonathan Martin and hazing, and we've heard so much about the locker room culture is that overblown? Is it changing? And do you think it's still going to be used as an excuse for allowing homophobia, racism, all these other types of mistreatment of people inside sports?
Yeah, all that stuff, guys like to joke around, but you never want to cross the line. And when the line is crossed, that's when it's very important to have solid leadership. And I think that's where the Miami Dolphins failed the most. Their leadership was, quite frankly, a joke. Like, their leaders, they don't deserve to be leaders. That's from general manager, head coach, captains on that team. When there's an issue, when something has crossed the line, that's where leadership is sometimes the toughest, because you have to hold people accountable. And you sometimes have to be the bad guy in the room to say, the line has been crossed, and you have to put someone back in their place. You have to put someone, call them out. And that can be very difficult, because sometimes you want to go along with the crowd and just say, sometimes you're afraid to speak up, but that's where leadership really comes to the forefront. With regards to bullying and in the locker room, I spoke at Rookie Transition Program at the NBA, talking about how the language in the locker room needs to change. Because if the NBA catches you using certain words, it's a minimum $50,000 fine. So there's things that the NBA is implementing, but then also from a culture standpoint, it's like going to the coaches, going to the owners, going to the team captains and saying, like, your role as far as being a leader is this much, harder. And, you really have to be aware that, when lines get crossed, of how to navigate that and how to deal with that in a way that really respects every single member of the team or organization.
Here's your question.
My name is Eric Hall. I'm a master's student at the University of Missouri. Would you have had reservations about going to a smaller market, like, say, Milwaukee, and how would you feel about going somewhere like Milwaukee now, having played your first season?
I don't have, I love Milwaukee. Some people, it might be too small for them. I think that, but, that's for me, it doesn't. A small market, and actually, I have some friends in Milwaukee, and it's, when you go to a small market, I'm never one of those people that's going to be out past, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, and that's kind of like every time you hear or read a bad story, it always kind of starts with that.
Right, there's a little chestnut in the NBA that nothing good happens after 2 a.m.
Yeah, so it just, I'm always kind of aware of my environment, aware of my surroundings, and you try to avoid certain situations if you can, and just have that discipline to not put yourself in a position that would could cause harm to you or negatively affect your reputation.
Hey Jason, I'm wondering about next season. How motivated are you to get signed by Nets or another team? Are you going to work out just as hard? Do you want to go back?
Yeah, I've been actually enjoying this summer. I've been doing a lot of speaking engagements like this, traveling a lot, crossing a lot of things off my bucket list. I went to London and Wimbledon for the first time. Because again, after that article came out, even before the article came out, I didn't have a break. And normally after each year, I have about a 6-week break of just really decompressing, but I didn't have that. And then, so from April till February, then back in the season goes until we get knocked out by Miami in May, end of May. So I now am, for the past couple months, I've really done a lot of traveling and enjoying this break. And I go back and forth on what my next steps are going to be. I told myself that I'll make a decision in mid-September as far as what I'm going to do, but as for now, I still work out, I still, run. That's because I just, I don't want to turn into Charles Barkley, but no offense, Charles. Talk about all the big girls in San Antonio, they need to take a look in the mirror. Anyways, see, humor like that. See, that's what we do in the locker room. We talk. But anyways, I don't know. So what's next up for me is I go back to LA for about a week, and then I'm going to the US Open in New York, and I'm also doing something with Martina Navratilova for MSNBC, and then taking a vacation with my boyfriend, and then I have to go out and do an event. My schedule, I travel a lot. It's really crazy how much I'm like a gold, platinum member of so many different airlines, but doing an event for Point Foundation in early September in Los Angeles, and then I'm a member of the Presidential Council on Fitness, Health, and Nutrition, so we have our big meeting in, I think it's like September 16th, I'll be in DC, so I'll be crisscrossing.
I want to interject one question. What about coaching?
Coaching, my brother's doing that right now. My brother is going to be a phenomenal coach. He's working with the Golden State Warriors. I said that earlier. You know what? If I'm gonna, I think that would be down the road maybe. But coaching is a huge commitment, and I love doing what I'm doing now. Going around speaking with working with different organizations, foundations, charities, you name it. I like having the flexibility of schedule. And if I were to go into coaching, like all of that, I can do that. I'm doing something with Human Rights Watch in November, something hopefully with I'm doing something with the Matthew Shepard Foundation in October, something with Glisten in October, Human Rights Watch, I said that. Billie Jean King is starting a new foundation. I'm working with her on that. There's a lot of great stuff.
Just say nothing that if you travel on a team plane, you lose that airline.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Michael Tracy. I want to get your response to, and actually this is for both of you, the homophobia that still, it seems to be really tolerated in the leagues, in the sports media to an extent, in a way that other biases aren't, or at least treated differently, double standard. We have a lot of great statements from the commissioners, but we had a series of players who had made slurs over the years. They get a fine that's like half a game, in terms of their salary. David Tyree just hired by the Giants after his homophobic, his supporting the National Organization for Marriage. Chris Broussard's response at ESPN to Jason Collins coming out saying, rebellion against God. You had a lot of that kind of response. And, with the Richie Incognito situation, people were fired. With the Vikings, Coach Prefer says people should be nuked and put on an island if they're gay. And he got 3 game suspension, 2 games if he goes to training, and they're really big on this training, and that's what the punishment is. So I'm curious about this double standard. Sterling makes comments that it's really treated seriously about race. We also know women are not regarded well, but gay people are still not regarded well too. And so I wanted to kind of have both of you approach that.
Sure. Culture of sport it's changing, it's evolving, especially over the last couple of years. The leagues are trying to do their part as far as those words, those terms, using the F word, using other words. Sometimes they just roll off the tongue very easily for some people. And really coming down, again, like I said, like if the NBA catches you using that word, that's a $50,000 fine. Now, some people, because they make a lot of money, can do that, but then they get beat up in the press. So you're trying to really affect change that way. So I think it's great work that the commission, NBA, I can speak only really about the NBA. Wade Davis, if he was here, he could talk about the NFL. But the commissioners or Commissioner Adam Silver is trying to change the culture and implement rules. Now, sometimes you're going to have conversations with people. There are people in sports that you are going to have to agree to disagree with. One of those people being Chris Broussard. Chris, after he made those comments on TV, reached out to me. We had a conversation. Now I'm going to detail what we talked about, but I will say at the end of the day, we agreed to disagree. And it's a shame that that's the way that it is with some people, but I find that with race, sometimes people will say things in a coded language, and you just, because they know now you can't use this term, but they can substitute it with this coded language, and it happens in our society. Sports is a microcosm of society. You're not going to eliminate it completely. Just like in society, you haven't eliminated racism completely from society. You're not going to eliminate it completely from sports, but you can send a message that if you use these words, if you use these terms, that there's going to be a severe financial penalty to you, and then also the negative social stigma that's attached when the media or certain groups go after you. Kevin, what else?
Yeah, I had an interesting conversation with an NBA coach soon after Jason came out. This coach is religiously oriented. I think he's a very bright guy. And one of the things he said to me is, look, if a gay player comes out of my team, my leadership, the guys that, Jason referred to, the guys on the team who, in some ways set the tone for the conversation in the locker room, we would gather and we would make sure this player is comfortable. He said, having said that, I think the median opinion of an NBA locker room is probably closer to, he was framing, he said, my sensibility on this than yours. I don't know that that's necessarily untrue, but what I am finding is I think 10 years ago, to the extent that guys in the league were going to talk about this issue, the burden was on, if you had gay positive things to say, you kept it to yourself because you didn't want it to become an issue. If you had gay negative things to say, whatever. I think that's changed. I think even the guys in the league who, for whatever reason, they come from conservative backgrounds, and I might ruffle some feathers here, I think religion's a huge impediment. When you have biblical literalists, you're going to have issues. I think, though, that they don't want the trouble. And I think over time, in some ways, practice and routine plays itself out in reality. I have no doubt that there's still, obviously, racism and anti-Semitism in this country. I think people harbor those feelings. I think people know better that we live now in a civil society where that's not accepted. So if you have these prejudices, you keep it to yourself. Now, can I get into that head and change that mind? I don't know. I heard a wonderful story, though. A player I'm tight with, I asked him to describe the locker room the evening after Jason came out. Because basically, and you can say this, in the NBA, you spend a lot of time sitting around with your teammates. And I think much of you're sitting around on planes, sitting around in locker rooms waiting, sitting around and shooting around.
Sure.
And, he told a very heartening story, of the 13 rostered players in the locker room. There was a legitimate discussion. The first impression he had was, this was great. This is a very progressive player who's been a leader on this issue long before Jason came out. A veteran who recently retired at this point. Probably, those of you who know the game probably figured it out. He said the first thing that was wonderful about it is it was an honest discussion. 13 NBA players sitting around talking openly about their perceptions, their apprehensions about homosexuality. He said there was an interesting split. The younger guys in the locker room were almost despondent that this would even be an issue. They were just like, to the point of hamming up, like, you gotta be freaking kidding me. Like, why do you care? And which he found very heartening, because, you know, eventually younger players become the veterans, and we're finding this in our own demographics when we look at these issues, right? Like, homophobes are dying. Younger people don't care. That's why we're now at 57%. So that was weird. But he said something else. He was like, the coolest thing about it was, there's some players in the locker room, and I think they're genuinely good men. They're devout. And they might come from conservative black churches. And he said the coolest thing about that conversation was that one mind was changed. That if you had to sort of plot all those 13 players on one spectrum, the fact that they flipped a vote, so to speak, if you in the parlance of politics. So I think there is, you're right, there's still homophobia in the league, but I think I like to equate it to the political climate. Like each year, I bet you poll the league and the rostered players, we're going to move this way. And it's not going to happen overnight, and I tend to be an incrementalist, which pisses some people off, but I think we're going to have that same demographic phenomenon that we're seeing on gay positive votes. Do you support gay marriage? Do you support homosexuality lifestyle? The Gallup stuff is going on in the league. And yeah, you're going to have the Mike Franceses. I mean, you're going to have those guys. I mean, and by the way, you have that in politics. You got that in entertainment. There's always a loud mouth.
Which is why we need more and more people to come out so that you can continue to have that conversation, so that people can continue to get different examples, different people, to keep having people talk about it. When I was at Rookie Transition Program, one of the young men really, again, it was about awareness on board. He had a real lack of awareness. It wasn't that he was coming from a place of hate. It was just lack of education, awareness, experience, all that wrapped into, and he was just wanted to know, and he kept asking questions, and that was, you know, it's great, it's positive. So it's one of those people, like Kevin was saying, that, you know, because he started out here, and then gradually he was like, okay.
Tim Hardaway is a perfect example.
Yeah.
These athletes live in a bubble.
Yeah.
I mean, some come from small cities and small towns. From the moment they're...
And also when you're in a bubble, not only are they living in a bubble, but they're in a bubble being coddled, like told, like you're the greatest thing ever since, you know, from the time that they're in high school or junior high school, saying, wow, you're the man, you're, you know, sort of, you know.
Yeah, and when you're living in that bubble and you have that sort of approbation, no one ever challenges your belief system. They don't want to offend you. Your handler, your shoe guy doesn't want to challenge your beliefs because he might lose you as an account. Your coach, your AAU coach, doesn't want to challenge you because what if you go to another team? Like the college coach isn't going to challenge you because what if you lose that recruit? In other words, no one has an incentive to basically say, you're kind of an idiot on this issue. There are very few people in your life, and I think, again, we can go, whether it's KG, whether it's Tim Hardaway, the minute you know someone, it's what we've all been talking about in the workplace. I mean, what are the stats that if those who know a gay person in the workplace are actually infinitely more likely to support or have gay positive positions? And I think basketball is just like that.
Kevin, Jason, we unfortunately are out of time. Let me give you 30 seconds to wrap things up with a final thought.
Well, I just want to say thank you. Thank you to you guys for having me here. Thank you for the work that you guys do in your respective fields. And continue to keep having those conversations and encouraging people to live their authentic lives. Thank you.